This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Cliff Yates Show. I'm Cliff Yates, retired LA County Sheriff Sergeant, talking to you about some police stuff today. Well, police stuff is police related. The Daniel Penny effect, it's real. We saw it coming. It's been reported prior to the atrocity that did occur, proving the Daniel Penny effect. What is that effect? The effect is we got a former Marine riding the subway to and from college all the time into New York. And as all of us who've ever ridden the subway know, you're going to see probably some mentally ill people. You're going to see homeless, maybe people panhandling, maybe people coming in and singing and demanding money. You see these things on the subway. I know because my wife and I, we go to New York once or twice a year, 4 or 5 days at a time. And when we're in town, we use the subway. So we see these things. So what do you have? You have the former Marine riding the subway, and then this guy comes on and he's becoming very violent in the way he talks, which is not unusual, but as Daniel Penny said, I'm not quoting exactly, this was different. I mean, this guy said, hey, I'm prepared to die today. Somebody else is going to die here today. And he could tell by what this guy was saying, and he felt compelled as a male, as a man, as someone needed to take action in protection of other people on the subway, put himself in harm's way, grabbing this guy, locking him up, chokehold. And let me tell you, when you are in a violent struggle with someone probably mentally ill, I'm telling you, if you let go, the chances of them pulling out a knife or something, or a gun and stabbing and or shooting you is high. So you're trying to hold on with all your might and keep this person subdued until help can come, which could be several minutes in the case of the police. So what happens in this case where the guy dies, that Penny, and it's reported that when the medics got there, paramedic, that he was still alive, he was still breathing. But we're not going to go into the details of the case, just the fact that this guy felt compelled, stepped forward, guy ends up dying. The mentally violent person who threatened to die that day and probably kill other people with him, this young man steps forward, and you can tell from the interviews, this guy is a soft-spoken. He is not a guy that's hot-headed, looking for trouble, and he's charged. He's sent to jail. He's charged. I forgot what the charge is. Murder, manslaughter. He was charged. Jury trial. He's attacked. His life is upside down because he came forward in the protection of other people. He knows he would have been all right. The guy is in top physical condition. You can tell. Young man, pretty big. He's pretty stealth. He looks good. Like he's in great shape. He's probably okay. He's not going to die, but he stepped forward for other people. What happens? He's handcuffed, taken away. He's gone to jail. Now, it was reported after that, even though he was exonerated by the jury, found not guilty, even though it was, of course, reported that, and we're going to look at some Fox News coverage. I'm going to play a video by Fox News because it was reported that, hey, this is going to affect anybody wanting to step forward. Any kind of Good Samaritan is going to say, wait a minute, I don't want to be dragged off to jail. Why would I get involved? I'll just be a good witness, or I'll just, I'm going to go the other way, because why am I going to put myself in harm's way knowing law enforcement's going to hook me up and take me away? And they were calling that the Daniel Penny effect. What happens then? Not too long after that, here we have a woman sleeping on the subway, probably, and she's reported as being homeless. And she's lit on fire by an illegal immigrant who we know in 2018, he was contacted by ICE. He was found out, you're illegal. He was deported. And sometime after that, we know probably Mayorkas, under the Biden administration, allowing everybody to come across that border. This guy is back in the country, and he lights this woman on fire, murders her. She's killed. And there was no accelerant in this case, right? So, to light somebody on fire with their clothes, he had a lighter. It takes a little bit. I guess he had to fan it. People are watching and videotaping this. No one is stepping forward to get involved. And, you could say, I don't blame them. But listen, I tell you, it goes through my mind when I'm on the subway. I have no fear. I have no fear. The only fear I have, no, the only concern I have no fear. So my wife and I said we just went to New York, right, which was shortly after the United Health person was shot to death outside that Hilton, which is where our timeshare is. So we were right there where the scene of the murder took place, where that shooting took place, and we were using the subway. Now, I had no fear being on the subway, but my only concern was because of the way I'm made, trained, I didn't want to be put in a position where I would have to take action. I'm going to have to step forward in protection of other people because I just could not sleep at night. Depending on what the circumstance was, I'm not going to walk away and let somebody else die, my wife or others or even strangers. I mean, that's going to be tough. I just was concerned and hoping that I wouldn't be put in that position. I knew percentage-wise probably not going to happen where I'm in that position, but I know it could happen. I know that it could happen where I'm going to feel compelled. That's going to be my instinct, even though I'm in New York, I'm unarmed, but I have the full armor of God, and I have a conscience that won't allow me to cowardly walk away from someone who may be about to be killed by someone. So I didn't want to be put in that position. And so, man, I'm glad it didn't happen, but I didn't let that stop us from interacting and doing what we wanted to do in New York. We took that subway. And, we're trained. Alba and I are both trained. Police officers are trained. We deal with mentally ill people. And so we kind of know what to do. We're aware of what they're doing, where they are in relation to us, if they're in a subway car, but we know enough not to lock eyes. If you lock eyes on them, it gets their attention, and then they focus on you. They laser focus on you. And then they could take action against you, the person that's caught their eye. So it's not that, Alba and I don't keep an eye and are not self-aware of what their position is and what they're actually doing, but we're purposely trying not to lock eyes with them. We know when we're dealing with mentally ill people, if you lock eyes on them, it could they take that as an attack on themselves, and they could react violently, or all of a sudden, at least they'll forget everybody else in the car, and their attention will be laser focused on you, the one who locked eyes. So we know enough, from past experience on the LA Sheriff's Department how to deal with these people. But it's always a risk. You never know. And let's go to the news, that Fox News clip.
The illegal migrant arrested for setting a woman on fire, then watching her burn to death on a New York City subway, was previously deported. An ICE spokesperson telling Fox News the suspect is, quote, an unlawfully present Guatemalan citizen who entered the United States without admission by an immigration official. Enforcement and removal operations removed him from the U.S. to Guatemala June 7th, 2018. Jonathan Fay is a former DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary, the former Director of ICE, and a former federal prosecutor. He joins me now. Jonathan, great to see you. Sorry under these horrific circumstances. And I want to add one more thing to this. Guardian Angels founder Curtis Lewa thinks the Daniel Penny case was the reason.
I don't know if you saw a recent news item. I saw it on YouTube, but it was Curtis Lewa and a group of the Guardian Angels. The Guardian Angels, he used to be riding the subway in the 70s or early 80s, right? As because the police weren't able to do their job, or it was just too much crime on the subway. And they stepped forward, those red Guardian Angels outfits, and a lot of them are trained in martial arts, but they're more or less trained in communication. And first they come from a humanitarian viewpoint of, hey, are you okay? They're contacting homeless people sleeping in the subway, maybe unconscious. Are you okay? And then if they're not okay, or they are okay, or maybe it's something different, hey, what can we do? They know how to get help and get the police there. They know at the next stop. They know if there's cops in the subway, they're going to be on the platform, so they know if to step in the doorway. And then they'll look both ways to see if there's a police officer within sight. They can call them into the car. They know the car can't move when the doors are locked open. And then they'll even call to the conductor, hey, we need the police here. And the conductor has a call button. They can call the police. So the Guardian Angels, man, they do. And they're volunteer. and they're back on the subway. I think that's great to hear.
Bystanders on that train did not help. We're going to read the quote right now. If we could scroll up a little, guys. There we go. Quote, "There's no doubt that people don't want to get involved. It's the Daniel Penny factor. It's frozen people. They're saying to themselves, I don't want to get jammed up like Penny." So, Jonathan, doesn't it seem like we have the worst of both worlds here? An entirely preventable crime because the suspect should not have been in the country in the first place. And now a city where people are too scared to be good Samaritans because they don't want to have happen to them what happened to Daniel Penny.
I think you're exactly right. You have bad policies coming together and collide to make the lives worse for the citizens of New York, particularly that victim. But I think it is really interesting that he says the Penny effect. It reminds me of, what people were calling the Ferguson effect several years ago, where police just basically aren't going to want to do their jobs if they're always going to be accused of misconduct and wrongfully in many and often most cases. And it is so sad when you see that because, one, no one tried to help her when she was burning. I saw that article in the New York Post, I think, yesterday. But also, maybe it could have been prevented, and no one's going to stand in the way because even though Daniel Penny was acquitted, he still had to go through the rigmarole of a trial, the expense, the stress of not knowing if he's going to prison. So,
and that's what I was saying before. I mean, he was acquitted, but he went through the stress of trial, the accused. You're the defendant. You have to defend yourself and hire a lawyer. When you were the Good Samaritan, we got to be creating, a PBD, Pat Bet David, on his podcast, he said, we got to be creating heroes in this community, in this culture of America, creating heroes. Penny should have been heralded a hero, award after award for taking action, a Good Samaritan, saving other people on the subway, so that other people see that and say, boy, I want to be a hero. In the 70s, it was reported, right? If you were a astronaut or a pilot, you were held higher than an athlete. That's the opposite today. And so, when I was a kid, people would play with fire trucks and police cars, and kids wanted to be firemen and police officers. And now, I don't know, they want to be influencers. But this Daniel Penny effect, it's real, and we saw it play out right there on the streets of New York, and we were right there just a couple weeks ago. We were there for Christmas in New York, riding the subway.
It really is just absolutely horrific. And then you go back to the fact that this was preventable. I mean, we know the Biden administration, after this person was deported during the Trump administration, they didn't do anything to prevent people from coming in. In fact, they encouraged people to come in by, providing them benefits, by telling them once they're here, they'll never get deported absent the most extraordinary circumstance. So, yeah, all of these bad policies collide to lead to one of the most horrific deaths I've ever seen. Plus, it makes the lives of everybody in New York and everyone in the country worse off because we know sanctuary cities, which is another one I think we're getting to, but those aren't just limited to the people in those cities. Like we know with Lincoln Riley, New York sanctuary cities policy led to her death. So all of these bad policies harm everyone, not just the victims, which makes them even more and more disgraceful than, just limited to a.
Boy, and this creep, he was filming himself. They show video of himself. He was filming himself on the subway either prior to the murder or shortly thereafter. And just crazy. This illegal should never have been in the country, and that lady would still be alive, just as the nursing student Laken Riley would be alive today if that illegal immigrant who had got through the border had been contacted in New York, released. Certain people need to be in jail. There needs to be, we need to protect people. And so it does no good for law enforcement to do their jobs, only to have a system that people are let right back out on the street. You can't imagine the amount of paperwork involved in an arrest, arraignment, that has to be done for the detectives to file a criminal case. And if you're going through booking evidence, writing these reports, and preparing your case for the detectives and the district attorney, and that person is let out of jail prior to you even signing your police report, it's a crazy demotivator in taking law enforcement action. Once again, we need blue backing blue so that we can get rid of these crappy policies that are putting all of us at risk on the street. We got to be anti-crime citizens and police. The Daniel Penny effect is real. The evidence is there. And now it's come back to haunt all of us in this horrific murder by this illegal alien. So we know what to do. January 20th can't come soon enough. All right, everybody, keep an eye on the Daniel Penny effect. It's not over. I'm Cliff Yates. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, that's how you support. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, subscribe to the show, everybody. I appreciate you. As always, I'll see you at the next episode.